I'm actually just going to be looking at a recent Lords of the Fallen podcast episode. I enjoyed that game, the 2023 game. I never played the older game, but these guys have been on point as far as these podcast episodes they're putting out, kind of detailing the development of the game. And I think that's a really good idea. Kind of chronicle the development with your audience, and yeah, just offer a little bit of new information on your game via podcast. So it's a great marketing idea for them. And yeah, I want to go ahead and just check out this episode. So I'm just going to watch this episode. And let me just check the browser window volume, can probably go up a little. Not too crazy, but a little bit. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and press play on this. Make sure everything was accurate. Yeah, here we go.
Welcome back to Lifting the Veil, our show dedicated to all things Lords of the Fallen 2. Apologies, it's been a bit of a while since our previous episode. We have been.
By the way, this is podcast. I mean, this is how to do it too. They're not just doing the talking heads. They have a set in their office in their studio. So I think that's a good call. Obviously, to just have a really nice set. They've got the promotional posters in the background and everything. It's a well done podcast. A little bit different, but almost like the style of the Always Sunny in Philadelphia podcast those guys were running, because they would just sit around a table and kind of do it that way too.
Very busy making the game, but wanted to make it up to you with today's episode dedicated all to the world of our upcoming game. So, joining me today, we have James Lowe, our fearless game director. We have Charlie Scott, a man strangely void of ink, considering he's our lead concept artist. And new face, and what a face it is, we have Javier Garcia Lahara. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah? Okay. All right.
Well, good job.
So, yeah, thanks for joining me today, guys. It's going to be a exciting episode, I think. So, let's get straight into it. So, big question to start. Let's discuss when Lords of the Fallen 2 takes place in terms of time period.
It's one for you.
It is one for me, isn't it? Yeah, already. So Lords of the Fallen, as we've established, is far in the distance from Lords 2023, right? And this is for a number of reasons. It feels right for the world. It feels, with the age and the area that we are within Axiom, but it also gives more credence to the actual environment itself. It's a lot more aged. It's a lot more worn, and Umbral has taken over more and more. So it gives a bit more credence to where the world really is and where Axiom kind of stands in the whole press.
Sounds like they're really expanding it. Yeah, I mean, they were talking about just wider areas and wider environments, so that'll be cool too. I mean, the other game had quite a bit of exploration. It was pretty linear, obviously, but yeah, I mean, it was in a looping way. You felt like you could explore quite a bit. So
The piece of this Umbral blight.
Following on from that, how is this world different to Mornstead?
So, I think we could all probably answer this in a different way, but I'll kind of start it and then you guys correct me and add to it. I think the one thing that we really wanted to do with this entry into the franchise is, introduce that Mornstead is quite a small part of Axiom. Axiom's a huge place, and Lords of the Fallen 2 will take us to a very different area of Axiom that has a lot more to offer. So we're kind of widening the tapestry of what Axiom is. So we're no longer just talking about Mornstead or this new location. We'll be talking about a lot more places and giving a few more threads for us to kind of explore and the player to kind of get into. But I'll pass it to you, gentlemen, because I don't want to talk all the time.
We were talking about different provinces. Now we're talking about different countries
Yeah.
outside Munster.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we went through the boundaries of Munster and we expanded, and we are visiting much the.
so this game's going to span across countries within the environment. That's pretty cool if it is like that. It almost makes me think like you can just conquer territories, which, I mean, they haven't said anything like that, but that'd be really cool if you could like conquer a specific area, almost like Shadow of Mordor. But that wasn't really an area. That was just like conquering another army or another battle or something like that. But or was it areas? I don't remember.
Wider set of different biomes, for the very dry deserts to the very wet and lush forests of jungles of the one of the factions we will have in this new entry of the game.
Yeah, it just gives us more opportunities to play with more toys, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we can, build interesting architecture and interesting enemies, which leads to more interesting interactions, right? That evolution of what we built is really important.
So I think, as our founder Marek revealed recently, this game will be made up of approximately 4 biomes. If you can give some more colour on that.
Yeah, so not to go into too much narrative there, because that's a whole episode in itself, right? And again, don't want to get into trouble.
Might have to look up the word biomes.
But with the state of the world, some, I would say, factions of Axiom have come together, some have gotten farther apart. So having different locations that have their own identity is extremely important to us. We wanted to really give the player, when they enter into one of these locations, it feels like the location belongs, the faction belongs, the architecture belongs, the enemy belongs, and the player can actually resonate with that. And playing in one biome, you'll definitely know where you are. Another one will be very different, and you kind of have this like, oh my god, like this, I've gone from here to here, and it gives this more of an epic journey that we want the players to go through.
Contrast as we move forwards, right?
100%, right? And having that like mental contrast, we have the opportunity to do that purely down to the narrative and what's happening in Axiom right now, and especially this area of the world. So it gave us, to coin what Charlie said, like a real fun toy to play with, where the players getting a very interesting experience from hour to hour, from 2 hours to 2 hours, to moment, really, by exploring these very, very dedicated biomes.
Okay, and like what?
It's actually, even going back to the 2023 Lords of the Fallen, it's hard for me to exactly put my finger on what made that so playable for me. Like replayability, I went back to the game a lot. The multiplayer I thought was fun. I know, there were some issues, but they didn't really, wasn't something I got hung up on a ton, because I had fun playing that. But there was some freezing and stuff. There was in a lot of these games, but with multiplayer. But the improvements they made are awesome. And then they rewarded you. They had specific rewards were only unlockable via the multiplayer combat, like the costumes and everything. So you had this goal. Those were pretty hard to unlock too. You had to earn a lot of that currency for each separate type of costume. Like one for the Umbrel, for instance, one for the Adir, the fire. I unlocked all those costumes, of course. So, but the multiplayer felt good when you had a victory in it. So yeah.
What level of like cohesion would you say exists between those various biomes?
That's a good question. So I think with all of it, there is always a through thread, right? We're a dark fantasy world, so it's dark fantasy at its core. But it's like what we said in one of the previous episodes. We want to really kind of pull on that and see how far we can really stretch that dark fantasy and really, really make it something for us, something unique that the player's not seen before. So there is always a cohesive thread that goes in, but what we've managed to do is keep that cohesion, Umbral being a massive part of that cohesion. Umbral is everywhere, and that's the kind of identity of our game. But there will always be then this uniqueness for that biome. So even though you'll have that cohesive thread, it will still feel like its own place. And that was really, really important to us, that this world feels credible to that space, but we can still see why it links to then the other biomes or the other worlds or the other characters and the other enemies.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying about the dark fantasy element is that I always find in like high fantasy or standard fantasy, they're building towards a great war, but in dark fantasy, the war has diseased the world. It's already happened. It's ongoing. You're talking about this 1,000 years, and that it breathes into.
I mean, if the world looked rough in the first game and it's looking worse in this game, that's gonna be pretty wild, because I mean, it wasn't looking that great to begin with, as far as like the disease and the Umbral stuff, like all the crazy stuff. So they must have taken it up a notch. It's to go from that to worse. It's got to be pretty bad.
The environment, everything. The villages have been destroyed, rebuilt, and destroyed again, and that echoes throughout each biome for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so not necessarily somewhere you'd want to go on holiday.
Maybe, but
Depends what type of person.
Yeah. Depends.
Yeah.
It's adventurous.
So you guys mentioned Umbral. So, this time around we've got more distinct variation between the biomes. Does that stretch to Umbral as well this time?
Yes.
Yeah,
We'll edit out any. If you say too much, we can always edit it out, and I will do.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing from the previous game that we wanted to really hammer in on this time. We have our dual worlds, and definitely you guys can jump in and give more colour here. But for me, Umbral in the last game had its identity, and that identity ran throughout the whole game, and that was very consistent. With the way the world is now, and the way Umbral is basically taking over the world, Umbral has its identity, so let's give it that identity. And how Umbral interacts with different areas has different effects. So, like what I was saying earlier, the last game took place in Mornstead. This game's in a new place, and those biomes and those places that we're going to go have been affected differently by Umbral, giving it its own identity, its own colour, and its own texture. So players can go, I'm in X biome where Umbral has done this to it, and that's something that you can take away, but we're still keeping that thread for the player where it feels very natural. It's going to be super cool to see how people interact with that and kind of the new Umbral phase that we're in, I would say.
Definitely. I don't want to bang about contrast, but I think that was really important to us.
Yeah.
Something I really liked in the 2023 game was you could earn this very powerful thing by defeating that Red Reaper, and that's an extremely hard enemy. Obviously, you wait till the Umbral gauge fills up all the way. It has a ton of health. You have to be fairly good at the game to parry it, dodge it, etc. You have to develop some skill to actually be able to even stand a chance of defeating it. And when it's attacking you, when you've depleted, or that Umbral has gone all the way up in the max gauge there, you can't heal. You can't heal at all. So you can use those little stones that slowly regenerate your health, but you can't use your Estus flask type thing. So you earn a really powerful Umbral eyeball to sock it in or whatever that makes you pink and makes all the weaker enemies scared of you. I love stuff like that in games. I think that's great. I mean, Final Fantasy 15 had that ring towards the end of the game that had that crazy move. You could basically vortex in any enemy into a black hole. Not a lot of games have an unlockable behind an extremely difficult enemy, or just, I mean, in Final Fantasy it just kind of gave you the ring, but that you can just equip and dominate the end of the game or a new game plus playthrough with. So I always think that's an awesome feature to have. I hope there's something like this in the new one, an unlockable like that, or some secret unlockable like that, so to speak. So yeah. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on something that I personally like to see in games.
When you're knowing, like you said, that you're in a new environment in Umbral, and then how that threads through was really important moving forwards for us.
Umbral's very much about escalation.
Yeah,
as well.
for sure.
Umbral's getting weirder and wilder the deeper you go, and that's a really, really fun thing for us to play with.
Yeah.
How are you striking the balance in this world between giving the player a strong sense of direction and progression without the world feeling too linear?
That's a good question. Been thinking. So you really need certain linearity when you are facing a challenge. So there's what we are offering the player right now is, okay, you get a glimpse when you open the world to a new map, faction, or set, we can call it. You have a very clear idea where you need to head to. So you have a revealing vista, and you go, okay, this is my target. That's the goal. I need to get there. And that is very clear. It can be up to the mountain, it can be down to the valley, but you have a very clear idea where you need to go. The thing is, what will happen to you in the meantime, in the process, in your way to that part. And that's the tricky part. To guide the player through a very big map, messy area, it can be even like the labyrinth. We need to guide the player with very clear signaling through the level. For that, we use.
They said big map. I like the sound of that. Just the words big map. I was like, all right, that sounds good.
Landmarks. We use things that you can recognize. We played with proportions, we played with size, we played with contrast in color or in light, whatever. We have a set of tools to guide the player without doing it very obviously. So we don't want to light signals. To be so go there. No. Okay, you get you move the camera and you're around. Okay, that is obvious. I need to go there. But the obvious things can be a trap too. Be careful.
Yeah, that's it, right? I mean, sometimes we do.
Those moth things in the 2023 one that popped out of the ground, I fell for that so many times, even though the pickup, it squiggles more. But you don't always pay attention. Sometimes you're in the heat of the moment and you just pick it up. And then a giant moth pops out of the ground and kills you sometimes. So, yeah, watch out for that. I don't know if they did that again or if they have another version of that, but that thing was tricky.
Want to give the player opportunities to explore, but then other times you want to go, actually it's too dangerous to explore. You know, those careful directions and pushes, you never want to drag someone through a game. You want them to be lured through and excited to see what's around the corner.
It's exploration through progression.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very much. I kind of love that being like a Souls-like game and Souls-like studio with the projects, and where we're taking it is that we're free to trick the player, and it's like we can give these like warm embraces of like, oh yeah, this is where my next vestige is going to be, and then we're going to go, no, actually, we're going to push you one step further. So, as Avi said, do not trust us. We will do some pretty dark
We will
things, I'm
try
afraid.
to reward you properly, but no.
We will also punish you.
I think something interesting for the viewers to hear. So, obviously, Laws 23, amazing looking world, but players did have issues through some of the areas. I think Forsaken Fen being one that I personally got lost in more than once. So, version 2.0, we added.
Yeah, Forsaken Fen, that's a good point he makes. Like, if I had booted up the game right now and tried to run around through that area, I'd get turned around immediately. The way it connects is so confusing. So, yeah, that's a good point.
The Umbral Guidance lamp system. But that's something that, with this game, we're not adding throughout the testing period because, and player testing is something we're doing much more often and more rigorously with this game. But we want
player testing is smart, and also teams, like, sometimes you play a game and you wonder if the team even played their own game. I think that happens a lot where you're just like, especially the games that if they like freeze up a lot or something, some kind of game, then you're just like, did you guys play through the entire game? Did you have anyone play the game? Like, sometimes that's shocking. So anything testing, anything player testing, that's a good move. Debug the game,
to see how players navigate without having to rely on that system to make sure it sort of like has a logical progression. And then, we can add that system at the end of development as a sort of a last port of call for players.
Yeah, 100%. I think with us and kind of how we craft levels and is going more into level design, but the philosophy there is our signposting needs to be the biggest lever. Having the lamp guidance system is a great thing to have and fall back on, but we want the levels to do the heavy lifting first, right? We want that to be the push to the player. And like what Javi was saying with like, these really clear Vista then marks of like, that's my goal. That's kind of a progression for us from the beacon system, right, in Laws 2023.
So I mentioned playtesting then, and I think this is a good opportunity to call out two new members of the team. So Victor and Jonah. So these are guys from the community who had a really interesting journey into CI games, actually. So both of them would send, back when they were just players and fans of Lords of the Fallen, and I'm going back a number of years now, they would just send emails to, I think, info@CI Games or whatever email address they could get hold of with, pages of suggestions and feedback on Lords of the Fallen 23. And that made its way to our founder, Marek, who just, saw real value in what these guys were suggesting.
Yeah, I mean, if those guys were sending pages, that shows a lot of dedication and a lot of passion for the game. So, heck yeah, you'd want somebody like that in your corner trying to make sure your next game is awesome.
And so much so that back in the summer, we brought both of these guys in-house in permanent positions. So they're helping to run the community whilst also testing the game pretty much on a daily basis. And I think it's already, their findings have already proven invaluable to the team. Just from their knowledge of Souls-likes, and these guys have thousands of hours in Souls-likes and Lords of the Fallen, but just sort of their commitment to just playing the game as massive fans of Lords of the Fallen and providing that perspective.
I think something's it's always cool for this genre is the community. The Souls-like community is one of the most die-hard, I would say,
Absolutely.
in the entire
I would agree.
industry. And having resource to tap there is fantastic. We're all Souls-like players. We've all got our hours, but we also are making a Souls-like, right? So you don't get to play as much as you would want of other titles. And having that kind of data pool, I think it shows our commitment to the player, which is extremely important for not only this game but everything that we do at CI. And so, yeah, it's not even just now showing respect for the community, respect for that player, respect for, the hours that they put into our worlds. And, our worlds are not easy. Like, it's not for the faint of heart. We took that one step further, and now the community is with us. And, yeah, this will be something that we're doing more and more of, hopefully, in the future. So, yeah, it's exciting times for a lot of that.
So, how do you go about making a dark fantasy world that isn't overly dark and oppressive and is still, I guess, enjoyable, if that is a word you can use for Souls-like to explore?
Darkness can be comfort.
Yeah, it could be quite comforting. I don't think it is so much in ours, but I think there's always a tone there, and it's kind of, we're hitting this term a lot in terms of contrast. Just because it's dark fantasy world doesn't mean it has to be literally dark, right? Sometimes the horrors you see are worse than things that you can't see. Going very kind of Lovecraftian with that. But for us, and I think this is what Lords of the Fallen 2 is very much going towards.
Yeah, you can have dark, but you can also have like vibrant settings and whatnot. The dark can be through the feeling of the environments and the feeling of the characters. And you can still have, certain color schemes and different things like that just make each area pop and is somewhat vibrant or has a high contrast or high vibrance rate or something like that. Yeah.
Here is that like real new texture that we're bringing to the biomes, to the world itself. Everything that's happened there is not ideal. Let's call it that, right? The people that are living in these places have not had a great time. However, the difference that we're like kind of introducing in with these like dark fantasy elements that we know and we love, and then pushing them even further, is kind of bringing light and darkness throughout the entire experience. So I can't say the place because that would be revealing too much.
We have sneakily revealed the name of the place, and I don't know how many people noticed, but it is out there. And it was on it was on the name of the main place, beginning with T.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Is that not the place you're talking about?
No, I'm not talking about that place.
Okay.
I can say it.
Do it.
So Thoringar.
Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Why? Are we having a Scion moment?
Well, isn't it spelled Thorn-gar?
Oh, no.
I thought it was Thorn-gar.
I thought it was
Thorngard. I'm saying it right?
Has it got a D on the end?
Yes,
Has it?
it does.
I wonder if we spelt it wrong.
Well, we can change the name for you, right?
Yeah, this is a Scion thing.
Simon,
Yeah, so that is the region that we're in.
Yeah.
And that encompasses many other places. It's not the place I was talking about, but there's a place in very, very early in the game experience when you're going through like a network of really trying to be smart, but like cathedrals, fortress, churches, things like this. And there's just one moment where you've just gone through about 4 or 5 battles as the player, and they're all pretty tough, new enemies every time, really trying to push, obviously, our variety within the world. And you get into this place, and there's a nice cozy fire, there's a nice table, there's some food that's not edible, like there's something, it just feels like, oh, I'm in like a nice kind of
So there's a nice little hotel. There's a Lords of the Fallen hotel for your character. That's nice. Yeah.
dark fantasy medieval dining room, and then you get absolutely bashed in the head as soon as you think you're actually safe. But it's this like kind of contrast from a really big outside space to then this cozy inside. Really little cool moments. So that's kind of how we're bringing these like different nuances to not make the world feel as overly oppressive. But again, do not trust us.
No.
We will find a way to frustrate.
Pockets of like beauty are really important. They add to the experience. Like, you know, you can make a world like dark and haunting and grim, but you need hope as well, especially in a Souls. Like, you know, if you've, like you said, battled through and just survived, and then you capture a vista, and it brings you back to reality and it leads you forwards as well. You know, if things are just grim, dark, and never ending, sometimes it doesn't pull you through as easy.
Yeah, if you don't have some light areas or some friendlier areas in the game, it doesn't have as crazy of a contrast to the feeling of the dark areas, if that makes sense. So the happy, friendly areas make the dark, mean areas seem meaner. Yeah.
So those moments of beauty are really important. You play on, you know, what you were saying earlier about, you know, a castle in the distance or a tower, and it you know, draws you forwards as well. You know, those capture you. A shoot of a light shining through a cave, you know, that literally brings light to the situation. So yeah.
I was going to say that we are not just creating a world. We are tailoring an experience, and that so for the player, for not being, you don't want to spend 5 hours playing at the same pace, at the same color, on the same environment. So we need to add a variety of feelings and situations for you, so you can fight and you.
I think he said base, so that almost goes back to that open world conquering areas idea. If that's in the game, I think that'll be really cool, depending on how they implement that. Yeah. I liked Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor, all those kind of games. And then even like GTA San Andreas type thing where, you know, you're conquering areas. So, yeah, that would be kind of neat if they did that in a certain way in this game. It would be interesting to see that implemented in a Souls game, period, because that's never been in a Souls game whatsoever.
You can breathe, then you can rest, then you can fight again, then you can explore, then you can admire a vista, whatever. So we need to spread it through the whole experience of one of the levels, so you have a very distributed and balanced experience through all of it. Because when everything is so intense, then you get exhausted, or when everything is black, then nothing is black. So you need something to add in the other side to make a contrast, to give it some value to that. So we need to add some light and some.
It makes sense. That's why in movies they always they have like a super happy moment before terrible things happen to the characters. They will sometimes have that like really like happy, everything's good, everything's gonna be okay, and then somebody comes in and just like destroys everything in the movie. So yeah.
Places, so you get hope. Okay,
It's
it's not
symphony
too
of murder. You know.
Symphony of Murder.
You're just looking to get one of those quotes on social that we've been
I
doing.
just got one. Just
Yeah, I mean, you came prepared with that one.
Yeah.
What's written on your hand?
very quiet. And it's
He was very quiet on the way.
I spelled symphony wrong there, you know.
Yeah, so I was going to mention actually, one thing that I've really noticed with this game, like we still have those areas of oppression and darkness, and that, I mean, that was Lords 23 in a nutshell. You forgot what sunlight was in that game. But in this game, you know, you're going through a cave or a cathedral, and there's, you know, it's maybe because of how dilapidated it is, but you've got like, you know, these holes in the ceiling, holes in the cave, and you've got these beautiful shafts of light coming through. And it looks just gorgeous from a graphical standpoint, but also just like, it does break that up, what you're saying. It's not just all darkness and like just, there's moments of respite and moments of beauty.
There's always beauty in horror.
You're just looking for a quote again.
You can say my quote if you want.
A Symphony of Murder.
Yeah, you say it better, then you might get the quote.
I think mine's way prettier, isn't it?
There totally is beauty in horror, though. I mean, think to like the Silent Hill 2 OG and the first 4 Silent Hill games and whatnot that set the bar of like art horror games, sort of. And I'm sure there's others outside of those that inspired those as well. But yeah, I mean, there's a serious art in psychological horror for sure.
Got my 2 legs there. But I think, finding, it's kind of these little moments within the chaos. Like, it's something, especially as like artists, like to my past life as an artist, like looking at, torn places that have either been, taken over by the environment or, fallen apart, like ruins. We're quite lucky in England, like the amount of ruined castles we have. But I can look at those for hours, and it's that chaos. But you can find like a flower sprouting from it, or ivy that goes in a very interesting way and creates a shape, and it takes this what was obviously quite a bad situation to that one environment, that one place, and adds something amazing to it.
That's something we use to a lot, is that we take benefit of the multicultural ambient we have in the company. So we luckily are people from many places in the world, mostly in Europe, but many places in the world, and that brings a lot into and how we craft the world. From the level design team to the level art team to the lighting team, VFX, all of them bring their own piece of heart into it, and we really create something that is solid, is something you believe it and you recognize also, even if it's fantasy.
That's true, because I mean, they're going to have people that have experience with all these different types of architectures across Europe and all these different types of historical architectures, and that really would play into a dark fantasy well, because those buildings and those ruins are so old.
It's very dark, but you can recognize, okay, this place rings a bell. It rings a bell, so you really believe in it. It's not something that is weird, it makes you uncomfortable. We got Umbra for that. On the other side, we got action, and it's a place, okay, you are fighting here. It's something that you recognize, and it's actually places in the earth, in our world.
No, I completely agree. It's something that, we kind of leverage without consciously doing it, I suppose. And, we'll find ourselves in conversations when looking at references or just talking about ideas, and, especially like, with yourself living in Spain, we're living in England, and it's like we're comparing architectures, and it's like, oh yeah, in Spain they do it like that, but over here we do it like this, and then it gives us this like, oh, well, yeah, we are now crafting something that's quite new, but still has a familiarity, which adds also to the horror side of it. Like when something's eerily similar, and you can kind of relate to it, something that you might have seen, and then we put the Lords of the Fallen filter on it, and it's like,
I wish that was just a button.
I wish it was. I'm pretty sure we're going to implement that in Unreal at some point. But it's just like, okay, we're creating these familiar spaces that can also, provide them comfort, but also provide safety, which is a really, really cool kind of balance.
That's the way
for
we
that.
use all the Catholic imagery that we use in Lost 23. We have expanded that into other territories, let's say. Well, okay.
Very smartly done there. You really, really navigated that quite well.
Javi for mayor.
I know, happy for me. Yeah, that's a better quote than Symphony.
I'll work on it.
It's a question that I've always wondered, and I actually don't know the answer despite working in the games industry for a while now. It's like, how do you approach the creation of a new game world? Does it start with like the lore, the gameplay aspiration, the geography?
There you go. Look at that lore. Like, that's why I chose that name. Lots of people say that word. It's good branding.
Or or something else. I've no idea.
All of it.
Yeah.
But how do you can't surely one comes first.
It's such careful collaboration, really, isn't it? It's every time it's correct process, and that never goes to plan, but bringing all the right people in at the right point in time, having all the information flow to the different teams, it does start narrative or design or concept, sometimes it really does fluctuate sometimes depending on what we're approaching and what idea we're tackling. It can be quite fluid in that way, and then that drifts into design, sometimes design lead, but the 3D teams, and then bringing a world to life. Maybe it's modular, maybe we can make something that we can craft and reuse and decorate an environment, and then that's tested with an engine, navigation, lighting, there's 100 other things I didn't even mention there that have to flow together and bring together. There's not there is a correct order, but there's also not. It depends on what we're approaching.
That's something interesting there, though, because I always look at it like the starting things is like this igniter. And this igniter could be a line, it could be an image, it could be some music, it could be anything.
Oh shit, we forgot something.
Go through all the departments. But what it can also be is that igniter. Then when you drop it in, like as a little eye drop to all of those disciplines, it's quite the chaos of what comes of that idea. Usually will form something quite interesting. So something that you could, like, mind's eye imagine, like, oh, I imagine this, and this is what I could see the world be, and it's so clear in my head. But then when you drop it into all of those disciplines, and then it comes back, and you're like, I never thought it could ever go this way. And that's something, I won't call out exactly what it is, but like Umbral is one of those things for us, right? Like it was a very small idea. I think the word sticky was a big one, It's weirdly enough, that becomes something, and it then starts to sprout its own thing, and then before you know it, you're put.
By the way, this video is on the CI Games channel. I'm going to go ahead and link it in chat. If you don't follow them or you want to check out the video, here is, well, let me see. I don't know if I can even link it on regular. No, let's undo that. No, you can't really do copy and paste on. Oh, there you go. You just have to manually do it. Okay. So yeah, there's the video. Great video. Check out their YouTube channel. Check out the video. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and keep playing it here. Just wanted to make sure I gave you a link in case you're wondering and you want to know where to find the video.
Putting its backpack on and sending it off to school.
Yeah.
So it's gone out the door. But it's those like moments that's where I would say the nexus of that creation period, and it's so much fun. It's like the coolest part of the project, especially when you have like a blank slate. And even though we're working within Lords of the Fallen, and that franchise has its grounding, it still gives so many options to then explore them from the get-go.
And that's what's exciting about I get to get involved in a lot of the early art side of things, and then maybe not see a location for quite a while sometimes, and then suddenly, wow, this team's made something so beautiful, and like it's come to life. A drawing we made, and it really is as great as it sounds. It really takes you by surprise.
To what extent does the lore sort of define or help guide the concepting of a new environment, and building on that, what level of environmental storytelling can players expect this time?
Lore plays a massive part, and I think even more so with a Souls-like. The lore that we have within the world it's so layered for how the player wants to engage.
Yeah, given my Twitch name, this part is very important to me. Lore Raider. So yeah, I better pay attention
with that lore. So it plays such an integral element in pushing a world to another level. Because it's all cool at looking pretty and all of that stuff, but it needs that credibility. And that's what lore really gives us the push for, I would say. And when it comes to environmental storytelling, again, in a Souls-like, one of the most critical aspects. We want players to stand and look at a place and work out what happened there. And that can sometimes be lore. There can be an audio note or a slip of paper that they've found and they've got it in their journal, and then that can link to like a scene that they may see in like 20 minutes, and we need to make those connections. That's what I love about Souls-likes. When I learn something and go, that was a random piece of information, and then I make that kind of connection to like, oh, and now I've just seen the scene that does this, and now I'm like making like, wonder what happened there, wonder what happened here. So for us within Lords of the Fallen, it's as integral as it always has been, and we push it as much as we can, as far as we can, because we want players to hang in those spaces.
I think some of the best kind of lore is like bad guy lore, like building up the bad guy. You find something that describes something bad they did back in the day makes you want to fight them even more. You're like, oh man, I gotta stop this guy. Like stuff like that. Just like build up the bad characters. Like having a good bad guy makes everything in a movie and in a game even. Like Stansfield from The Professional, great. I mean Gary Oldman obviously. So or Michael Madsen, Mr. Blonde, you name it. For me, that kind of lore goes a long way. Just building up, or even in a horror game, building up lore that adds to the tension, into the horror of the atmosphere, into the scariness of everything. That kind of lore can be really, really cool in world building. I don't really need lore when it comes to just like random. Oh, this is a nice thing about the, like all that nice stuff. Like yeah, whatever. But like the bad guys and like the stuff that builds up the tension and the scariness. That's always pretty cool.
Basis and hang in those moments in time and go, I'm seeing the after events of this. Can I piece it together? And that's where then you jump on Reddit and you then see the theories, and it's like, oh, I think this happened here, and there's nothing cooler than seeing that. When fans are taking that and making their own story. It's so much fun. So for us, incredibly important. And there's a lot of stories in Lords of the Fallen 2. And Thorungar's got quite a lot to say. Now I'm thinking about saying that word right now. I'm knackered. But
You're allowed to speak that word.
I'm allowed to speak. Just bleep it out. It's fine.
I think in the arts, especially, we've done our job right when the player doesn't necessarily have to have listened to an NPC, tell a story. If we are able to tell that in the environment,
I think that's actually really cool that they're tying in the character from the older Lords of the Fallen game, into this game, because not a lot of people are probably as familiar with that older game as they are with the newer one. So it's interesting, and it kind of brings more attention and more curiosity back to the story from the previous game, so you understand that character a little bit better too. So that's smart.
That's our job, and we've done it right once you can say, hey, they've got the story and information and background just from being in a place, stepping foot into it. As much as the cutscenes and that all that is super important. If we can add to that with environment, then that's amazing.
Yeah. It's also the most fun part to do.
It is, yeah, exactly.
Super cool. Some of the ideas that people come up with are out there.
So before we move to our question corner under the lamplight, I'll end with a fun one. If the world, and we can answer this with individual biomes, but if it had a smell, what would that smell be?
Musky.
Probably a little bit of metal, and then all the other nasty stuff you can think of probably mixed together. But yeah, definitely a little like a metallic smell almost.
Musky.
Musky.
I'm looking for new quotes.
Like a girl, new quote.
Musky. I don't know if that is a quote in itself.
Should we table that one?
Yeah, maybe not your best then.
Definitely not vanilla.
Oh, okay, right.
It's not like a nice cinnamon in there.
Yeah.
I'd have to pick a particular place, and it would be a crime not to go for Umbral. Okay. And what Umbral smells like?
Okay.
Decomposition.
It's like, right, you're going on holiday for 2 weeks. You've not cleared the fridge out, and for some reason, someone's convinced you that all the plugs in the house need to be off, and the fridge is one of them. So you've clicked the fridge off. You've gone on a nice holiday for 2 weeks, and then you've come back and you've realised there's some mints in there that is definitely not safe.
You didn't cover it up.
You didn't cover it up, and it's literally, and it was a bit open as well.
Yeah.
So it's all knackered.
Yeah.
You take that mince out. You put it in the bin, and then you realise you didn't put the bin out before you went. And it's now just this entire festered mess. If you stick your head into that bag, that's what Umbral smells
new
like.
ecosystem has grown.
Yeah, it's literally.
Yeah.
You don't know if the bin's gonna walk off.
It's the kind of smell that sticks to you.
Yes, yeah.
Like a back.
That's a good line.
Yeah.
That's a good line.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was really cool. I liked watching that and giving some commentary on it and just seeing what's new about Lords of the Fallen. I'm not going to do the questionnaire part. This is their music on the video or whatever. I'm going to be careful about that part. But anyway, yeah, that was really nice to see and get some updates on the Lord of the Fallen game coming out. I'm looking forward to playing that game. I linked in the video in the chat earlier, and if you happen to stop by and watch this stream today, I appreciate you. Thanks so much. If you watch this later, feel free to follow, pop in the Discord, share your own Twitch clips, share your own Twitch highlights, stuff like that. I made it a bit of a community where you can network and kind of building that community up a little bit. So yeah, have a great day. Have a great week, everybody. And yeah, maybe we'll see you in the next stream. Thanks.